صوت.
This song was the first I ever sang. It was also my very first performance. I was 7 years old and I sang it at the Cultural Palace, a major cultural landmark in Ramallah. I attended the Helen Keller School in Al-Quds. Miss Imam Zain, I'm sending you warm greetings from here. She heard my voice, took an interest in my talent, and invited me to perform as a soloist in the school choir. We sang the song Tell Me Why. I remember how people would come up to greet me and take pictures with me.
Welcome to a new season of Dumtak, where we bring you behind-the-scenes stories of Arabic music from around the world. You're listening to the English rendition of Dumtak on Loosely Adapted. I'm your host, Rana Daoud. In the series, you'll hear voice actors narrating the stories of our guest musicians. These are artists who navigate life and their craft with various disabilities and impairments, each forging a path to create powerful, moving music.
It was really difficult because the school was in Al-Quds and I live in Ramallah and hold a West Bank ID. The school bus was not allowed to collect me from inside the checkpoint, nor was my family allowed to walk me through the checkpoint to take me to the school bus. There was just 1 meter between the checkpoint and the bus. Can you imagine? Only 1 meter. The soldiers could see that my mom just wanted to assist me to walk to the school bus and come back, but they still wouldn't let her. My family had to hand me over to strangers, just so that they could help me walk over to the bus. When I returned from school at 1 o'clock, sometimes there were clashes and shots fired. I might have to wait 3 to 4 hours on the school bus. All that, and also, there would be stun grenades and tear gas thrown at us. I recognized the sound, but I didn't know which direction it was coming from. It used to really terrify me.
In this episode, we hear from Yara Qawariq.
I am a young Palestinian from Ramallah. I grew up with my mom, dad, and sister. I was one of 2 daughters. My connection to music and singing started while my mom was pregnant with me. She'd listened to a lot of calming music and the Quran.
28 من أيلول سبتمبر عام 2000 أريل شارون يدخل برفقة حراسه
Back then, she would listen to the news all the time as well, as did my father. It was during the Intifada, and the Israeli military were conducting ground invasions. The situation was really terrifying. My parents always had the news playing in the background. Later, my dad told me a funny story. He said that when I cried as a baby, he'd carry me and either play calm music or the Quran or Al Jazeera news to settle me down. It actually made me calmer. Subhanallah. It was as if my mom was listening to the news while pregnant had an effect on me, because as a baby, hearing the news would instantly calm me down. When I was about 3 years old, my mom and dad would play songs by Kulthum, Shayma al-Shayyib, and others around the house. I would sit there, humming along, repeating the melodies over and over. I couldn't really sing all the words yet, not clearly anyway, but I could hum the tunes and try to mimic the sounds. And that's when my family started to notice that I might have a talent. I started talking really early, and when I was around 6 or 7 months old, people in the neighborhood even nicknamed me the Messiah. My dad would count to 5 and I'd say 6. It was pretty funny that I could speak at such a young age. Later on, my mom signed me up for a music lesson, so I could learn how to play the piano at the Kamandjati, a music education center.
Al Kamandjati was founded as a non-profit organization in 2002 in the midst of the second Intifada and has produced hundreds of musicians, singers, and music connoisseurs through its academic and creative programs. Yara continued learning music and honing her talent for singing at the Music Education Center for many years. Her journey may not have been possible without the strong, supportive environment that surrounded her from a very young age. And that's not because society stood in her way, but because Yara was born blind.
Usually, when someone is blind or loses one or more of their senses, the other senses become stronger to compensate. In my case, God compensated my blindness with better touch, better smell, and better hearing. Sometimes, when the doorbell rang at home, I could tell who was coming just by their scent, or, for example, touch. When I was little, I used to recognize people by touching their ears.
Sighted people often connect with their favorite singers through appearance as well as sound. Their stage presence, how they carry themselves, and who has a striking look, who's had a nose job over the years, and who's grown their hair long. For Yara, however, this visual connection is experienced differently. Take Kulthum, for instance.
You picture her in sunglasses, right? A lot of people tell me I look like Kulthum because of my sunglasses. I mean, I don't know. I can't picture what anyone truly looks like, except through the sound of their voice. Appearance, the word appearance, is a word I hear a lot, but it doesn't mean much to me anyway. All my attention was on the music, the melody, the singer's voice, how they navigated the maqamat, and the philosophy behind their sound. I can tell a lot from someone's voice, their size, their style, even the way they sing. And when I say way of singing, I'm talking about their breathing. For example, I could tell you how Kulthum breathed in her songs, and how Abd al-Halim did too, just by listening to them sing, just from the sound of their breath as they sang. I could even tell how she was standing, how Kulthum was standing, just by the way she projected her voice, like when she sang a line with "ah" or something similar. I could imagine her lifting her head in a certain way just to push that note out. I was able to imagine her facial expressions just from the sound of her voice. A musician, for me, is just a musician. Music, for me, is just music. It has nothing to do with being blind or anything like that. If someone wants to connect with me, I'd rather they treat me just as an artist, as Yara, not as a blind artist. Being blind might bring out a uniqueness that someone's art stands out more than the average person, but that's not the only thing that defines them. We listen to Sheikh Imam and many other musicians like him. And like I was saying, people didn't connect with Sheikh Imam just because he was blind. They connected with him because he was an amazing singer, a real artist.
Just as she was finishing school, the Faculty of Art, Music and Design at the Birzeit University started opening its doors. Studying there had been a long-awaited goal of Yara's. But reaching that goal wasn't going to be easy. Yara says that the school for the blind and visually impaired in Al-Quds gave her confidence, strength, and the space to express herself.
The school had a similar approach to what my family did at home. They focused on building my confidence, teaching me to not be afraid of anyone, and also to be at peace with myself. I mean, I'm sorry, but words like blind don't carry a lot of weight for me. When I was a kid, we used to joke about it. My family wanted me to be able to handle those moments in public so that no one could use it against me as a weakness. That was very important for me. And school really helped me learn how to express my opinions and taught us how to make our own decisions.
But young Yara's confidence and resilience were put to the test when she enrolled in schools that were less prepared to support her needs. The most challenging time came during the transition to inclusive schools, where she began studying alongside sighted classmates.
When I started attending regular schools, I was the only blind person there. It was a typical school. They used pens, blackboards, and wrote in notebooks. Everything was designed for sighted students. I was the one who had to put in double effort just to keep up with the education they expected. The first thing I did when I started was record the lessons, then go home to write it up. Wallahi al-azim. Can you imagine? I'd put on headphones, one ear listening to the teacher's lesson, and the other one is listening to the laptop so I can hear what was typing. Can you imagine how I had to divide my senses like that? In 11th grade, I went to a history and geography class. And of course, the teacher who taught us was like an encyclopedia. MashaAllah, she was amazing. She knew so much about history, but of course, just knowing wasn't enough. She had to unload all of it on us. I didn't have time to write anything down in class because she spoke so fast. The other students wrote while she talked and filled the board with notes. I had no choice but to learn to see, just so I could copy things off the board. Or the other option would be to take a notebook from one of the students.
Yara and her parents worked extra hard so she could keep up with her classmates and achieve good grades. They spent countless hours and many sleepless nights copying material, summarizing it, and trying to absorb it. All of this took a significant toll on Yara's energy.
But, of course, when that stage was over, I was done. I didn't want to do any more work. I didn't want to study. I had an event coming up in Egypt. So I said to my mom, listen, I don't want to study anymore. I'm just not interested. I'm done. I need some time to rest. I'm tired. Anyway, I've got rehearsals for this event in Egypt. I was really focused on rehearsals and just wanted to stay away from studying. Anyway, I wasn't meant to be studying at that time. I was just relaxing at home. I mean, do you really expect me to take my books to Egypt and study there? No way. I wasn't going to study on the Nile. I was going to enjoy myself. I didn't need any more history or geography lessons. I didn't care about getting good grades in those subjects anymore. I was done. I was frustrated. But of course, back then, I didn't understand how hard failing school could feel yet.
After her participation in a music event in Egypt, Yara bid farewell to the Nile, promising she'd return soon. She became back to Palestine with an award in hand, but also having failed the second year of Thanawiyya, the final stage before university, equivalent to sixth form in the UK.
My mom came over and said, "See how much that failure hurt? It's one thing to fail yourself and me, but if you fail your exams, everyone will know. Everyone will see how badly you've failed, and you'll have to bear the consequences of that failing. You'll bear the consequences of that." Of course, when she spoke to me like that, I understood. She didn't want to punish me. Her goal was for me to learn. Because the very next day, she took me to the amusement park. She told me, "It's over now. You failed, and you learned from your own mistakes. You understand what it feels like. But this isn't punishment. Go out, have fun, live your life. Yes, you failed your final exams, but it's done." That was the hardest part, failing. But the next day, we went to the amusement park where we had fun, and everything felt normal. Everything was okay.
No doubt, every student feels societal pressure to do well in their final exams. The higher the grade, the more it sets you apart from your peers. And no matter what the grade is, it can still shape the course of your life. This pressure felt by all the students weighed even more heavily on Yara, as it was compounded by the shortcomings of the educational system.
My mom came over and sat next to me and said, "Look, you have a learning difficulty, and the educational system, along with the teachers, didn't take into account the unique differences between you and the other students. They didn't consider it. But now things are much clearer. You're going to prove to yourself and to everyone else that the problem wasn't you, it was the system.
After Yara repeated the second year and passed it with difficulty, she had 1 year left to go.
We have this family tradition, since we're part of a big family, where whenever someone finishes their exams, the rest of the family sit around and make predictions about their grades. This time, they predicted I'd get 65%. I went home and said to my mom, "Oh my God, they predicted I'd get 65%. The thing is, they said that number out of courtesy, just to be nice. Maybe because I'm blind, but really, they expected I might get even less.
The only option left for Yara and her family was for her to pass the exams, even if it meant turning her lessons into songs.
I started turning geography and history into songs during my exam. Wallahi al-azim. I swear to God, I'm telling you. When I went to take my final exams, I had memorized the entire book by heart. I could literally copy-paste the words straight from my mind. How did I know when I'd forgotten a word? It was when something felt off in the rhythm. I'd hear the difference when I sang it to myself during the exam and realize something is missing. That's how I knew I'd forgotten a word somewhere, and I tried to recall it. It really worked for me. I used the melody like mawal vocals to build a full song out of the lesson. I sang it once as a mawal and once as a full song.
نتج عن ظهور الثورة الصناعية تنافساً استعمارياً بين الدول الأوروبية للحصول على المستعمرات لتحويلها إلى مواد الخام اللازمة للصناعة.
Yara had memorized the rhythm and brought it to life during her exams. The result? She passed with flying colors, scoring an impressive 90%, and with it came a renewed sense of self-confidence.
This stage truly marked a turning point, not only in my education, but in the direction of my whole life.
Yara was now able to enroll in the newly established arts department at Khreizat University, choosing to specialize in music. The department opened its doors to talented local arts students with the aim of helping them move beyond amateur training and scattered community centers. Instead, it offered a structured academic path to develop their creativity and skills professionally. To enroll, Yara had to take an aptitude test. Having overcome numerous obstacles, her hard-earned dedication and growth in singing and music had paid off. She passed. In 2020, at the age of 19, she stepped into the university well-equipped to face new challenges as a music student.
The challenge was that when I was in university, we were required to have the musical score with us when presenting or performing. But for me, reading music and playing at the same time is not possible. When I play the piano during a piano exam, for example, I use both hands to play, but I also need my hands to read the sheet music, so I couldn't do both at once. Instead, I tried to memorize the entire score. Of course, all the other students had their sheet music in front of them, but I had to memorize the entire score to perform in the exam. Sometimes I used sheet music to practice, and sometimes, as I mentioned, I cannot play and read at the same time. I have to memorize the music, but sometimes I had a reading exam. Reading the score worked in one of two ways. Either the books were printed for me, which was very complicated and wasn't easy, or I used an electronic Braille XL device. The university provided it for students, and they let me use it until I graduated. I used to download the university materials onto it, and the content would be converted into Braille line by line electronically.
This period opened up new horizons for Yara and other students as they shared their experiences and began to engage with the Palestinian music scene.
I was working with my professors at university, and I also worked with them on publicity materials, advertisements, things like that. I networked with other students who were musicians too. Through university, I got to know several other musicians. It was a very important stage in my life.
The music scene in Palestine is modest compared to music industries in places like Lebanon, Egypt, and the Gulf. Nonetheless, Yara took part in local festivals and performances in different cities in the West Bank. At the 2021 Wena Ramallah Festival, she performed as part of the Philemon Wehbi program, an initiative by Al Kamandjati Institute, led by musician and composer Yaz Brien. The project showcased works by the renowned Lebanese composer, Philemon Wehbi, on both Palestinian and Lebanese stages. She also performed traditional songs and mawal vocals at many other events. Over time, the local audience, regulars at music events and performances, grew familiar with her presence on stage. With her signature sunglasses and a vocal range that allows her to explore a wide variety of music styles, she became a recognizable and captivating figure in the local music scene.
Honestly, one of the most important shows for me was the Sufi performance. There were some very difficult songs from the Andalusian era. The lyrics were also written by people from the Andalusian era, but the ensemble Ibn Arabi performed it before. Of course it was challenging. The lyrics aren't easy to sing. First of all, the language itself is complex. And secondly, what was particularly special for me is that I'm one of the few women in the Arab world who have performed this kind of music. I started performing this show between 2022 or 2023. We performed a lot of shows across the West Bank and in Al-Quds. Alhamdulillah.
As part of this project, a Sufi song titled Al-Wajd wa-Ruh, which means devotion and the soul in English, was written and composed for Yara for the first time. It was composed by Yaz Brien and written by the poet Ziyad Sawalma. Yara shares with us another Sufi song by Yaz Brien called Jamru Intidari, Waiting Like Embers.
جمر انتظاري في هواك تبتل المستحيل به هو المأمول محض انشغال عند من جاهل الهوى لكنه للعارفين حلول هو في دمي أسري وكل جوارحي إن جف حيري
In early 2023, a television program called The Golden Voice was launched, a local experiment that attempted to keep pace with well-known talent like The Voice and Arab Idol.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, I hope you're all well.
You too. Hope you are well too. What's your name?
Yara Qawariq.
Yara auditioned with دليل يحتار by Kulthum and بفكر في اللي نسيني by Mohamad Abdul Wahab. She went on to qualify for the live shows and reached the finals. But for unclear reasons, the program was discontinued. Within the next few months, Yara finished her final year of university. Meanwhile, the war, the genocide, the raids and the killings continued in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and still continue as we record this episode in June 2025. The situation forces everyone to confront the question of priorities. What kind of work do I want to create at this moment in time? What do I want to be part of? And what don't I?
The situation is very unstable. I try to bring attention to the genocide, even if it's only a small contribution. I released رجع الأصيل, as a form of emotional release. I feel that in a small way. It helped me find some relief. I know there's only a little I can do, but even if it's in a simple way, we can give voice to others through our singing. It was written by poet Majd Hamid. I composed in collaboration with him, and I performed it together with singer Khalil Qandah. This song is about families trying to cope after their children have been killed, even in the most difficult and cruel situations. The lyrics say, "They lift the martyrs on their shoulders and bid them farewell. 1,000 salutes rise for his father. His brother shouts at the top of his voice, 'Brother, the path ahead of you is beautiful. To the martyr's mother, may blessings be upon you. I hope my mom will resemble you too. Leave the martyr sleeping. 1,000 salutes rise for his sister.'" The lyrics talk about how Palestinian people deal with martyrdom and how the families of the martyrs deal with the death of their children. I am currently a master's student in Egypt at Helwan University in Zamalek in the Music Theory and Composition department.
In this new chapter of her life, Yara is making the most of her time in Egypt, but her experience there isn't purely academic. With Egypt's bigger music scene and quicker production pace compared to Palestine, she's spent the past few months making songs in styles she's not used to, and in a mix of different dialects.
Of course, any artist who wants to shine is instantly drawn to Egypt. Artistically, what has taken me years to achieve before, I accomplished in just 3 months in Cairo. Thank God. I've produced many songs in Egypt, alhamdulillah. The first song was called Aish, a duet between me and the artist Ahmad, and the lyrics were written by Dr. Walid Saoudi, who was the producer as well. The music arrangement was by Haytham Farouk. I hadn't sung in this ballad style before. Actually, singing this ballad was a really nice experience. Later on, I also made Maqbool al-Khiyana. The lyrics were written by poet Rami Ghazzawi, and the music was done by me. After that, I produced and released the song Qana'a, a duet between me and the Saudi artist Nasser al-Nasser. The song was especially meaningful for me, more than any other, because it was the first time I've sung in the Gulf Khaliji style. Recently, I released my last song, حقك علينا. What's special about this song is that it mixes Western and Eastern styles, which made it very unique for me. It was released just a few days ago. And of course, I want to keep up. In the end, you are not singing just for yourself. I'm not singing only for myself. I have to keep up with today's generation, what they like to hear and all those details. So, alhamdulillah, I feel like I'm moving in the direction that fits the market's demands.
If you search for these songs on YouTube, you'll find some of them under the name Yara Al-Asil, not Yara Qawariq. Recently, Yara was looking for a stage name with an easy rhythm to replace her family name, which can be a bit hard to pronounce. In a spontaneous brainstorm with her mother, they chose Yara Al-Asil as her stage name together. There is an incredible array of visual impaired and blind singers, such as Sheikh Imam and Sayyid Mikawi in Egypt, Ibtisam Lutfi and Aisha Al-Marta in the Gulf, and more. This is often in spite of the lack of proper support and priorities within the artistic and musical circles, especially when it comes to female singers. These factors create apprehension and fear about some artists participating at all, let alone performing on stage. Perhaps this is why we cannot ignore an artist's unique circumstances when telling their story. And it's not just us. Yara herself connects with her still developing journey in music to the challenges she's faced because of her visual impairment.
I want to direct this message to people with special needs or disabilities, whatever you want to call them. I don't mind what it's called. Just don't let your disability affect your quality of life or your future. Let it be the opposite. Let it be a motivation for you, because disability doesn't eliminate energy. And I'd like to send a message to the families of people with disabilities. I always use platforms like this to share these messages. Don't treat your child as if they can't handle their disability, as if it weakens them or holds them back. Always push them forward, even if your child feels frustrated in any area of their life. Respond like any mother would, with support. When I was frustrated, it was my mother who lifted me up and encouraged me to keep going. Be that kind of pillar for your child, the one that holds them up, not the one that weighs them down. Be the one who keeps them going.
This episode was co-produced by Sowt and Komet Kashakeel, with voice actor Sofia Asir narrating our guest musician Yara Qawariq. This episode was researched and written by Mahmoud Khawaja and produced and edited in Arabic and reviewed in English by Jana Qazzaz. English translation and production by Lauren Pepperell and Mahmoud El Saghir. Sound by Ahmad Mitry, Mohamad Khreizat, and Mahmoud El Saghir. Managing producer, Tala Halawa. Access coordinator, Yaz Brien. Access consultant, and Lightfoot. Our theme music was created by Ameer Moussa, and I'm your host, Rana Daoud. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on this episode on Radio Thamania, and we'd love your ratings on Apple Podcasts and CastBox. You can also connect with us on Instagram and X at Dumtak Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whichever app you're listening to. This season was funded by the British Council's International Collaboration Grant. Dumtak and Lucy Adapted are original productions of Sowt.